Composing music is, in itself, a difficult endeavor. The composer typically carries the burden of manipulating human emotion, either directly, a standalone medium, or as a primary force accompanying visuals. Many movies and TV shows are remembered fondly for their soundtracks, and some of the most iconic moments in cinema history owe much of their impact to a powerful musical score. These works are often created by immensely talented musicians. Even then, they are composed for a linear medium with very specific constraints, which arguably makes the task more manageable. Video games, though, are an entirely different beast. Alright, this video is kind of a continuation of my previous one, as I've decided to turn this into an ongoing series about game design in general, where I'll talk about different aspects of making video games. Everything from sound design, music, animation, level design, and more. While the series will cover video games broadly, the primary focus will be on Age of Empires 2 and 4, and my own video game, There Be Istanbul. This video is part 1 of my coverage of music and video games, as I'll be showcasing different levels of complexity when it comes to composing music and implementation, including my own. Hence, if you'd like to support us, we'd really appreciate it if you could wishlist our game on Steam, as it means a great deal to indie devs like us. Thank you. Okay, let's begin with Age of Empires 1 and 2. In the original game, music was essentially a collection of MIDI files played in a fixed sequence, regardless of which civilization you selected. The experience was closer to a jukebox than a reactive soundtrack. One of those MIDIs eventually evolved into becoming the main theme of the franchise: new technology. Age of Empires 2 initially followed a similar path, beginning with MIDI-based music before later transitioning to recorded audio tracks. Fast forward to the definitive editions of AoE 1 and 2, the music was fully remastered by multiple composers. The result is a soundtrack that feels modern and polished, while remaining faithful to the emotional tone and atmosphere of the original music captured back in the 90s. From a civilization-specific perspective, historically, each civilization only had a very short jingle that played before the match began in AoE 2. In DE, these jingles were expanded so they could function as a short, civilization-specific track rather than brief stingers. As a result, with each new DLC, Age of Empires 2 adds several new civilization jingles based on the newly introduced civs, along with a handful of longer thematic tracks that broadly match those civilizations or the DLC setting. These additional tracks are then added into the general gameplay playlist. This is also why the game allows you to choose the order of music tracks via a drop-down menu. In practice, this means you get roughly 1 to 2 minutes of civilization jingles, complemented by several 3 to 4 minute DLC theme tracks added to the pool. Beyond that, the music remains static. It doesn't become more intense during combat, nor does it calm down in moments of peace. It simply plays in the background according to your selected playlist or shuffle settings. So if we tally everything up, the 2 official soundtrack volumes for Age of Empires 2 run at roughly 2.5 hours combined, adding approximately another hour for all civilization jingles and including DLC music. The game ends up with an estimated total of under 5 hours of music overall. In Age of Empires 4, on the other hand, how much time do you have? If you look at the official playlist of Age of Empires 4, you'll find 14 tracks which are under 2 hours in length. However, these tracks only serve as a general representation of the music. This is not how you listen to them in the game, as AoE 4 does not take the same jukebox approach. Instead, it plays music composed specifically for each civilization. So there's no general tracks or playlists here. If you select the English, you're going to listen to English music only. On top of that, just like the rigor implemented in voice lines, each civilization's music changes per age as the music gets more complex as you play through your game. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. Let's dig deeper. Although we've established that music changes per age, let's put a pin on that for a moment and focus just on the Dark Age. If we break it down, each age for each civilization has roughly 5 different tracks. Each individual track has 4 to 5 segments from A to E, as well as an intro and an outro. Okay, what does this mean? So traditionally, just like in previous AoE titles, a track plays from start to finish in one go with no interruptions, so it's one file and one seamless composition. In Age of Empires 4, they decided to separate the intros and outros of each track and have multiple interchangeable segments within each track. This means you'll listen to each track differently in every game, as segments within are randomized. Hence, they had to compose the music with this in mind, ensuring that each segment can pick up from the end of the intro and flow into the outro, and do the same with each individual segment seamlessly so that the player doesn't realize that it's dynamic and all of these transitions are happening in the background. The result is lots of music in general, but also lots of variety of the same music so that player never feels that they're listening to the same track over and over again. So what does this mean if we zoom out now? Well, for each civilization, there are 4 ages. For each age, there are 5 tracks, and for each track, there are 7 segments. On top of that, to ensure a seamless transition, there are age transition stingers as well. That comes down to roughly 150 pieces of music composed horizontally for every single civilization. Notice how I use the word horizontally. You may think that the music is already complex enough. We're not done yet. To visualize what I mean, the horizontal aspect of the music is based on their intro, the interchangeable segments, and an outro per track per age. But what happens if you enter combat? The music has a deeper vertical layer with 4 different states of exploration, tension, combat, and something they called rare. Let's open up this can of worms. Exploration is the calmer, more mellow pieces of music that plays when no combat is ongoing, and combat is for when your army is battling. These 2 states are what I will call the baseline music. Tension is for, well, building up tension, but not quite as bombastic as combat, and rare is additional accents, big hits, counter melodies, things like that. Remember the age-up transitions that I just talked about? There's a variant for each game state for those as well. So going back again, this means that every single civilization has 4 ages, 5 tracks per age, 7 segments per track multiplied by 4 different states. Now, because this system is dynamic, there's no proper way of saying how long the music really is, as you can make it sound quite different and loop seamlessly with each play. But if we had to estimate, here's what it will look like. If Age of Empires 2 releases a DLC with 2 new civilizations, you can expect a minute each for each civilization, and perhaps 3 additional tracks in the playlist. This means that we can expect around 15 minutes of music if we're being generous. An Age of Empires 4 DLC with 2 new civilizations, on the other hand, would be roughly 6 hours of music instead, and maybe more, and that's excluding campaigns. As mentioned, I estimated a total of 5 hours of music in AoE 2 overall, while Age of Empires 4, as it stands today, is probably sitting around 36 hours of music, and would be 150 hours if normalized to 50 civs like AoE 2. To clarify, these numbers are estimated because a quote-unquote track, for the lack of a better word, is pieced up in so many different variants and segments, so I'm not quite sure if we can get an exact number. Nevertheless, even assuming a generous margin of error, the point is that it's in a whole different league compared to not only Age of Empires 2, but video games in general. Okay, we've covered just the type and amount of music that was composed, but with what constraints were they composed? And how is all of this really implemented? This part is admittedly very convoluted. Let's start from the top. As far as I could understand, tension and rare are meant to layer with other verticals. Tension can play with exploration, combat, and rare, while rare can play with either tension or combat and tension simultaneously. This system is frankly so complex that I'm not sure if they composed and pre-exported standalone music pieces for every possible combination here, or they have tension and rare layered on top dynamically. If there's someone on the sound team watching, maybe you can clarify in the comments. In any case, this means that they had to compose with the intention that all of these pieces of music are meant to not only interact and layer with one another seamlessly, but also transition in and out of each other invisibly as well. There's a whole logic behind this. If you poke around the game's modding engine, you'll find a parameter called music importance. This value helps the engine calculate the intensity of the combat occurring on your screen. If there are only a few archers and men-at-arms skirmishing, the music importance within that diameter is low, so the engine will decide to transition from whatever exploration segment it was on and layer a tension vertical of the same age without playing its intro. Add more units, the combat intensity increases, and then you transition to combat music. If the intensity stagnates, it continues with the combination of combat and tension. Otherwise, it begins introducing combat and rare instead, which is supposed to be the most epic music. If the combat dies off to just a few units, we regress back to exploration and tension, and eventually, if everyone dies, back to exploration with no tension. And remember folks, there's a further transition layer between ages, and which transition plays depends on which state you're currently in. Okay, that was quite a lot of info. Let's just see how it plays out. I've enabled cheats against AI and reduced all other sound effects on purpose for you to follow along. We'll first start with a simple transition from segment B of track 1 of the exploration vertical of age 1 into the transition between age 1 and 2 of the exploration vertical. Into segment D of track 3 of exploration of H2, skipping the intro deliberately. The game mostly ignores attacks against scouts and continues the same exploration music, so I opt to attack the enemy's base. Once the skirmishing starts, you begin hearing elements of the H2 tension of track 3's segment D layered on top of the same exploration vertical. Due to the few units, it remains in this tension layer. Then I call in reinforcements, and we transition from the exploration and tension combo of track 3 segment D into the combat and tension combo for H2 of track 4 segment A. While I'm fighting, I age up to the castle age and get back into combat. Because I momentarily looked away and my screen no longer had any combat in it, I temporarily transitioned back to the exploration and tension verticals of H2's track 4 and segment A, which triggers the tension transition of H2 to 3 instead of the combat one. Nevertheless, we seamlessly move from that transition of H2 to 3 into H3 track 1 segment C of the combat and tension verticals. I then mass delete my units to simulate the end of the battle, which transitions us to H3 exploration of track 2 section B with no tension. A quick skirmish to go to H3's exploration and tension verticals, followed by an H3 to 4 tension transition into H4 exploration track 3 segment D with no tension and no intro. Into combat with tension once I bring over the siege. I finally then spam lots of units to move to the combat and rare verticals of You guessed it, track 3, segment D. Now, obviously, I cut out the middle parts so you can listen to the interaction of all of these pieces of music, and since I'm visualizing and narrating over what's going on here, these transitions may now seem very obvious to you. But to the majority of the player base, this delicate dance of various pieces of music is invisible because it's designed that way. It's designed to be seamless. So every time they want to add a new civilization, they will have to go through this gruesome process of researching the music, instruments, sounds, and the composition styles of that civilization, compose many hours of music for each era to fit each age, somehow make this transition seamlessly from one and into each other, and then orchestrate and record them live to finally mix and master. Probably a fun exercise for the musicians, but I doubt it's fun game production-wise in terms of cost and time. Folks, I admittedly may have mislabeled certain music segments or even misunderstood certain parts of how the music interacts. It's a bit of a black box if you don't get to speak with whoever set the system up at Relic. But again, even if I was wrong on a few minor details, the incredible complexity here remains, and that's the main point that I'm trying to drive home. Did Age of Empires 4 really need to go this deep? Maybe not, but it's truly a tough genre to compose for if you're gonna go with the dynamic music route. Let's take a few examples on how others handled music. Expedition 33's combat is turn-based, and there's a very clear distinction and transition between combat and exploration states, as entering combat makes you enter a completely different game state. This makes it easier from a music perspective because you can just do a fade in and out, play combat music, and fade back into the exploration music again once you're done. The complexity here still remains in that there still needs to be a separate intro, outro, and loopable segments in the middle, very similar to the horizontal layer in AoE 4. This is because combat can take 5 minutes or 50 or more, so you need a way to loop those segments in between to not bore the player. They then smoothed out the transition between the middle segment and play the outro, which, funnily enough, is also loopable when the combat is over. And finally, a simple fade back to exploration music. The music in my game, Let There Be Istanbul, is somewhere in between. We're still beholden to the same looping middle segment and transition challenges here, but since our exploration and combat are not different game states we transition in and out of, just like AoE 4, we have to be a lot more careful. For example, take this section in our Mardin level. Keep in mind that what you see here are very rough placeholder sketches for playtesting purposes and haven't been rendered yet, so don't pay much attention to the visuals. We have composed a specific track for the restaurant segment, but for it to transition naturally, we needed a track without a distinct intro or an outro. Here's why. As players approach the restaurant's door, they need to begin hearing the music from inside. But since we're outside, we'll first need to ensure that it only comes through their right ear, and also adjust the EQ to mimic the sound of listening from outside. Something like this. To not run into the intro issue, we'll start playing the song from somewhere in the middle. When they enter, they'll listen to the song as normal, and the music should, in theory, loop seamlessly until they're done fighting. Once they're out, we do the same thing again, but to the left ear this time. That said, this on its own, though, doesn't solve the problem yet. The initial variant had an intro which was problematic, because players will know the exact time the song has looped, as it has a very distinct intro. Right, this will be very obvious that the track has restarted. With this other variant, the percussion of the start and the end stays the same. Here's what the intro sounds like. And here's what the outro sounds like. Okay, now if I play that again and replay it from the top, you'll hear this. 1, 2, 3, and 1. It's a seamless loop. It's seamless even when you're focusing on the music now. You won't realize the track has looped as you're busy fighting and focusing on the gameplay instead. So, to me, that's mission accomplished. At least for one of our sections on one of our levels. To circle back on Age of Empires 4, there are just so many more variables than Expedition 33 or Let There Be Istanbul from a gameplay perspective, so it's undoubtedly more difficult to set up. I will say this though, I'm pretty sure they could have gotten away with not composing per age and even reduced the verticality in a certain sense. Maybe the better approach, the more scalable one, would have been to have a calm, moderate, and intense variant of a reduced amount of tracks with some changes to instrumentation between those intensities. This would have been a fraction of the effort for, yes, not the same, but similar experience. In any case, I'll repeat this. Kudos to everyone involved in composing such a meticulous soundtrack, from the research to the composition to the orchestration to scripting in the engine. This whole thing is S-tier and of the highest quality. To sound like a broken record from my previous video though, this comes at a very large cost, and this design choice will hold them back with every new civilization they release. As a final word, there are a few more aspects about music to talk about, but that's for part 2, the next video. I've talked about mostly the technical implementation of all of this and the positive outcomes of composing complex, dynamic music. But there are drawbacks too apart from its cost, and other considerations in your approach to music. The leitmotif, the memorability, the melodicity. If you want to learn about how certain games excel at or struggle with these, and where the Age of Empires games position themselves within those concepts, then be sure to tune back again very soon. Until then, take care everyone, and enjoy the music.